And welcome. So, had a little bit of an issue there getting up and started, but we're good to go now. Welcome and welcome back for those that used to watch when we did radio and streaming on Facebook and YouTube. That was a while ago, so um, things are a little smoother, but I don't want to say more complicated or complex, but the tech is better, and therefore we had to get some things set up. So we're good now. We're live on currently Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. For those of you that have Twitch as well, so Facebook and YouTube at the very least, what we used to be on before. So first of all, thanks for being here. Those of you that we are live, and that was always my favorite to go live, not just record something, but go live as well. And we'll be so tonight is just going to be a kickoff to get back on and get started and get back to some consistency with when we want to get the show up and running. So tonight is SuperMex Nation. That is the flagship show of what used to be the SuperMex International Network, and we had 5 or 6 different programs at different times throughout the week, but weekly for sure. Everything from music and entertainment to art, entertainment, political, social, cultural, all of the above. But for the most part, the SuperMex Nation show was and will going forward be, this is what I've come up with as and we'll sit this into the description of what the show is going to be going forward. So basically, an analysis and commentary on the Mexican American experience, the Mexican experience in America, and we'll go into a little more detail on the specifics of the wording and the terms. But the Mexican experience in America through a lens of social, cultural, and political. Now that's a very, very big umbrella, but it will require a very big umbrella. The size of Mexican America is not insignificant in relation to the total. Mexicans in America, Mexican America itself is the largest and fastest growing subgroup in America, and no signs of slowing down. So the show will be primarily from that vantage point on those particular items, but not limited to, again, the social, the cultural, and the political analysis and commentary for Mexicans in America, Mexican Americans. Okay, and then for the most part, that is what we finished up as and with when I was done doing the show a number of years ago, and I think we've always been heading that direction. So what I don't want this show to be going forward is it's not going to be strictly just political and just governmental issue and policy, even though that is one of my wheelhouses. I spend time, and I think it's important that we talk about and delve into the Mexican American experience when it comes to art, music, entertainment, culture, etc., and on the philosophical and educational, as well as economic. So again, a wide umbrella. We're not limiting, but for the most part, that's going to be the filter with which we approach, our day to day when we run the show. And this show in particular will go at least once a week, starting today after a number of years of a layoff on my part. But we'll go at least once a week, probably scale up as time goes by and time goes on, to cover and to address / talk about issues that are current, that are important, relevant, and that we need to dissect, analyze, and find answers for, if not some type of solution or conclusion, if it is a problem or it warrants further discussion. Okay, so again, once a week, this show will center on, again, let me make sure I'm clear, analysis and commentary on the Mexican experience in America through a lens of social, cultural, and political environment today, where it's at today. For the record, for those of you that don't know, I am a former history teacher. I did teach U.S. history, AP European history in the classroom. That's a long time ago now. I don't teach anymore, but that is my perspective and view from a professional standpoint. Those are the things that I enjoy talking about. I'm also a veteran of the United States Army Infantry, long time ago, 30 plus years ago now, but that also colors my viewpoint. Obviously, I've already stated, or I'm coming at you from the Mexican American viewpoint background. That is primarily, for the most part, what I identify as. And we'll get into a little bit more here as I segue to that. Okay, so that's the show. That's SuperMex Nation. Again, thank you guys all for being here, that are here or that watch later on recording on either Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch, or any of the above. And we'll add more platforms as we go forward. So what I first want to do is notify you that this show is not going to be super long tonight. It's a kickoff and a primer for the things that are coming. And I want to like teach this like if it's in a classroom and address like a specific topic or an item or a topic of the day that's current, that's now, and put some facts on it, try to understand it, try to keep people even keel and focused on the right of something. And when I say right, I mean facts. You know, what is it we can see, we can identify with, regardless of your political stripe, whether you're left or right, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green, whatever you are, there should be some set of facts and common understanding for what you view and what you see, what you intake. Now, if offhand you're just obligatorily going to be against something because you have this one viewpoint, well, then all the best to you, but you're probably not going to like it here too much, because I'm kind of left, I'm kind of right on a lot of things. I have some hard opinions on certain things, but I will fortify those with what I believe to be my stances, my opinions, my base from which I argue those points. But for the most part, again, I'm kind of all over the place in what I view. I don't singularly identify with one ideology, political party, left, right, too conservative, too liberal. I'm conservative on some issues and I'm liberal on others. And I reserve that right to be able to do so. And my personal opinion is this, and I hope, some of you will agree with this, or at least a lot of you will agree with it, if not everybody. Your personal views shouldn't be skewed one way because someone else tells you that this is the way you have to be and go forward. Because then that shorts you of finding or learning information that is contrary to what you've known in the past. And in short, it stops you from learning and growing, beyond something, right? So if you're uniformly left on everything, well, what if there's something good that comes from the right? Are you just going to be against it out of hand? And vice versa. If you're to the right on an issue and most issues and you identify that way, and I've got a lot of friends that identify hardcore as conservative only, and they're missing the forest for the trees, because there are things that are actually liberal that they don't understand are liberal and that are good. So I like to be able to decide on what is good, not based on someone else's right or wrong or left or right ideology or a political party ideology or a conservative liberal ideology. I like analyzing it on its face, on its own, what is good. And then we go from there. And then the rest of you can attach whatever you want to. Okay, so before going forward, I want to make sure that, at least for the concept of the show, I want to identify out right now the things that I've not seen, and the reason for me back on air and wanting to do this again after having been on radio and streaming at the end of the teens and into the early 2000s. And then that's kind of when I cut off. But what I haven't seen, and to this day, a dearth of, D-E-A-R-T-H, a dearth of, is quality, competent, factual, non-linearly approached Mexican-American views in the forms of individuals on air, putting out commentary and analysis at a high level. I just don't. I don't see it, And don't get me wrong, I'm sure you could find somebody, there's that one person, right? But as a whole, in relation to the nation and in relation to the population of the nation, we are woefully underrepresented. We have very little representation and very little access at that level. If you go on any of the major news channels, news stations, you rarely, if ever, and definitely not, I have seen some Hispanic females, and I'll get to that in a second, but Mexican-American females, not as many males, very few, okay? And I've got my beliefs on that. We can get into that in a future show down the road. But for the most part, I'll just drop that on the table. If you spend time after this show, after you watch this, go find a consistent and omnipresent Mexican American that you can go to for quality information, factual information, without trying to skew you one way to get likes, subscribes, or whatever for their own personal. That's rare and very, very few and far between. And so, in a roundabout way, after a lot of prodding and questioning from friends, family, etc., when was I going to get back on? When was I going to start? The answer is now. Okay, and so I'm going to do my damnedest, my best to make sure that what I put out in the form of these shows on my channels is factual, is researched, is credible, and I won't bring it up and I won't address it unless I'm knowledgeable on it. Now, can't be knowledgeable on everything under the sun. You can give your opinion, but you can state why your opinion is such. That way people can make their decisions based on what they view from you. So, no, I'm just not going to come on here and say, you should believe this, you should believe that. I'm going to present them in a Socratic form, in a Socratic way, where it's question and answer, it's dialogue, and then you make the choice for yourself. And if you don't find yourself aligned with my view, then so be it, and that's okay. That's good. All right, that's good. But that you reach that on your own, and that you reach that after deduction and analysis and good information, good factual information. So if I provide you with good information, good facts, and we're not on the same sheet of music somewhere down the road on a particular item or issue, I'm okay with that. We're good. Okay, but it's when you choose to just be against someone in an adversarial way, you just choose to be against them out of hand without knowing anything about them, or not knowing their position, not knowing their stance, not knowing their background, not knowing why they are where they are. Well, then there's no room there for any type of growth and any type of dialogue, meaningful in an intellectual way. It just doesn't go anywhere. And for the most part, I don't think a whole lot of people are going to disagree with this. There's a lot of that out there. Okay? There's a lot of that out there. So trying not to do that, trying not to address that. So for tonight's show, that's a beginning. That's a little bit of description about what's coming on SuperMex Nation as we go forward in the coming weeks and probably from now on. But I want to drop some markers down to begin, as this is our first show in years. And I want to address some terms for those of you that identify in one way or the other with the following words or terms that get used interchangeably in our country. Okay, so I'm going to go in the most specific that I identify with because of background, because of upbringing, ethnicity, genetics, etc. So Mexican American, I'm American, of Mexican descent, Mexican origin, etc. Right? So I'm Mexican American. That is, a core, and that is for the most part more of, and I have done the ancestry thing, so that's probably more identifiable for me in that form. Native to this land where we occupy now in California and the Pacific Southwest, and Mexican in general, from parents and great-grandparents and beyond that did come from Mexico, and from great-grandparents and beyond that never came from Mexico that were here the whole time, meaning long before this was Mexico, long before this was New Spain, long before this was the United States. I have ancestry that predates all of that. So you can imagine there's a lot of terminology here. So I want to be specific on it. So I identify as Mexican American. I do identify as Hispanic. So Mexican American, Hispanic is encompassing of that because it has to do with of or from Spain in particular, right? So culturally and linguistically, we are of that origin. Now, some Mexican Americans don't like identifying with that part, and that's cool. You can do that, right? I'm going to take a wide umbrella approach. I'm going to take them all. Why not? Because what we have done or not done a good job of as Mexicans in America is we've not done a good job of getting together and working together in some commonality, moving in the same direction. And as I say that, if you're Mexican American and you're listening to this right now, you're saying to yourself, well, yeah, that's true. You may not even like it. You might even be one of those. But let's face it, and I think that's common and understood. Mexicans in America, Mexicans in general, as a whole, and I'm not a Mexican from Mexico, another component, but Mexicans in America, we don't do a good job of working together. We don't do a good job of unifying, and on some common things. We don't do a good job of identifying to grow and to better and to unite or unify a large group of people that occupy this country. Okay, so let me scale up. So Mexican American, Hispanic, which is the larger, and then the largest of all those components that I will identify with to a degree, not uniformly and just by itself. I'm saying all of these at once, by the way. Latino. So Latino. I never got into the Latinx thing. Sorry, maybe that's for younger people. You got me. I didn't do that so much. I don't think I just think it's a little extra, a little too much. So I'm good with Latino. Latino is primarily, now watch this, primarily, and this is the education side, primarily a linguistic term of Latin, okay, the language. So in essence, giving you the quick history lesson, Latin, the language, obviously, for most of you that do know any type of history, it is the language of Rome, the ancient Roman Empire, Roman Republic, and that goes back 753 BCE, okay? So it's been around a long time. We generally, and this has been a term that's been kind of forced on us by not us, interpret or segue however you want there. But for the most part, if you identify or someone's calling you Latino, it usually means that you are of Latin origin, meaning you speak Spanish, and you come from a Latin American country. And we're going to dissect all of these right now. This is going to be a learning component. Again, we're not going to do too long tonight, but you're going to learn something before you walk out of here today after listening. Latino having to do with or of Latin America, in essence, is all of South America, all of Central America, and then up into Mexico. And you could even make the argument, if there were no border, a good chunk of the United States is Latino too, right? The Mexican-American experience throughout the Pacific Southwest. So it's a big geographic region, and it has to do with people that are speaking Spanish. Now watch this. I'm going to take it the next step because this is also true. Latin by itself is the progenitor, the mother tongue, and there are languages that sprang from it. So you can be Latino and speak Spanish. You can also be Latino and speak Portuguese. You can also be Latino and, watch this, and speak French, speak Italian, speak Romanian, and Basque to a degree. Those are all Latin-derived languages. Now, for the most part, some of you are going to wait a minute, I don't understand that, because you haven't been taught that or fed that. But Latino is, in essence, of Latin, the linguistic term, the linguistic language component, that mother dialect, that mother language that spawned and gave rise to all of the other subgroups of Latin. Again, those are the ones that are simple, the ones that most obvious, definitely from where we are in the United States: Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, French, Romanian, and some other subdialects that are not as prevalent. But those are all languages that are spoken in countries. Romanian, obviously, here's a side note. Moldova is a small country next to Romania, and they speak Romanian. So they are also a Latin language. So you're saying, wait a minute, way out in Eastern Europe, they're Latin? Yes, they are. The Roman world was a big world, by the way. All right, it was a big world. And then when the Spanish Empire exploded out and conquered, and we'll just say it, they conquered portions of the Western Hemisphere. They transferred their language, their religion, their culture, and a whole bunch of other things. And we are a byproduct of that, good or bad. Not getting into that debate tonight because there are bad things to it. But good or bad, that is a result of what we are. Okay, so those are the terms that I loosely identify with and then in conjunction identify with. I do identify as Mexican American, American, obviously, born here, raised, and served. I do identify as Hispanic. I used to have an issue with that to a degree. I don't anymore. I do identify as Latino. All of the above. And if we're going to be a unified group, a strong, unified group of people, then we need to include all of them. We need those numbers. We need them all on board because we do have way more commonalities than we have differences. Now, me here, way different than one of my homies that I met in the Army from Cuba or Puerto Rico. Okay, we're different. A lot of differences. But language is Spanish, common. Religion, mostly Catholic, common. The culture, they're very, we'll get into more of that in future shows, but a lot of common ground there. And I'll say it, I'd rather find common ground than an excuse to not be with a brother from Puerto Rico or a homie from Cuba or El Salvador or wherever else, okay? There's way too much there to tap and to use. Okay, so I'm giving you these broad terms so that you kind of understand this is where I'm at, and I'm not going to impress onto you what I believe you should be as a Mexican in America or a Mexican. If you are Mexican and identify as Mexican, I think let me qualify that too real quick. If you say you're Mexican specifically, then that usually or should mean that you are of or from Mexico, the country, and maybe not born in America, and you don't identify as Mexican American. And that's okay too. Okay? Because when it's all over, watch this. This is probably going to be the single most important unifying thing you're going to see tonight if you're watching this on video. When it's all over and done, you're still brown. I mean, mostly. All right? Don't get me wrong. There's light and there's dark. But for the most part, I mean, there are a lot of people in Puerto Rico and other parts of Latin America and in America that are dark, that are darker of skin. I am. I'm not light-skinned. So I identify with all the above. Really, really dark or really, really light. All the above. I've got cousins, friends, family that are all shades and in between. But the things that are common are the language, the religion, the culture. And then I've got to find a way to kind of get us together on some of the political things. And that's the tricky part, right? Okay, so let me leave off there, but I want to make sure we're perfectly clear here. So if you identify as Mexican, specifically, that's going to mean or that you're going to feel, and I'm not giving you the dictionary stuff here, by the way. I'm giving you what I feel, what I've lived in 55 years of a life. If you're identifying as Mexican, that probably means you're from Mexico, born in Mexico, still identify as that. Maybe you're living here, that's cool too, all right? Whatever you want, whatever. You should have the ability to identify yourself, not have someone identify you, okay? Mexican American, more of where I'm at. I wasn't born in Mexico. I don't live in Mexico, although I do feel a lot for Mexico. Again, culturally, politically, etc. But Mexican American, and then the larger term is Hispanic. I do identify with that to a degree. And then Latino, the very largest term that we can identify with or not. Again, your choice, but I do. Latino, of or derived from the Latin language, Latin origin, right? And that is a big number. And last point there before I move on from understanding these terms, and I hope you understand, hope you get a little bit better. Like we can read these out of a dictionary. That's easy. I would rather give you what I am, what I feel based on a life. This is what I've lived. This is what I've seen. And for the record, I have been in other parts of the world, lived in Germany, lived in the South, lived in the Pacific Southwest now, grew up in California. This is where I reside. Right? But I have traveled to other places and seen other things. So I won't go in tonight into subgroups within Mexican America. Where I grew up, you could be Chicano, you could be Pachuco, you can be all kinds of other cool things too. Other subgroups within the Mexican American experience. We'll save those for another show, and I'll address those specifically because not all people identify with those either, but you can, and those are part of my makeup and my background as well. But those are subgroups of the larger ones, and I'll save those to treat them individually and on their own at another time. Okay, so I've given you the big terms: Mexican, Mexican American, Hispanic, and Latino. And I hope after tonight you understand a little bit more, at least in terms of what I believe, what I feel, where I'm at. I kind of identify with all of them. I'm good with all of them. You know, I do. And for no other reason, watch this, for no other reason, if we had all of those together, wow, that is a potent force. Or could be. Could be a potent force. Can you imagine that? That amount of people, that number, all working together, not dividing each other, not finding fault with each other, not distinguishing between, oh, he's too dark, he's too light, she's not this, she's not that. You're not Catholic enough. You don't speak good Spanish. You know what I'm talking about, right? And we'll get into those things in the future. Again, this is a primer show, a beginning for me to get back on. But these are significant, serious items and issues that I've addressed over a lifetime that have yet to be solved or even really yet to be addressed in a really, really measured, intellectually important, and significant way. Okay, and we're going to do that on SuperMex Nation. Okay, so I've given you the terms. And I said that we're going to do, like, for each of the shows, we're going to do at least a topic of the day. So I'm just going to do one topic for today that we address, again, from my perspective, as a Mexican American, Hispanic, Latino, all the above on that end, right, on the cultural or identification side, but also as a veteran and someone that was raised at the knee of two grandfathers that served in World War II and heard all the stories, heard all the beliefs, and what my two grandfathers, in each of their own way, there are two different men, they're two different people. My grandfather Ernesto and my grandfather Demetrio Ortiz and Ernest Martinez. Those are my two grandfathers, my dad's side, my mom's side. And each different in their own way, but both Mexican American men, both served and gave their signature to sign up and serve this country during World War II. So I grew up with that. So I believe in the United States. I believe in the principles of the founding of a document. I believe in constitutional principle. And even though I won't go so far as to say I'm a constitutional scholar, I'm about as close as it gets to that without actually claiming it. What does that mean? No, I didn't go back to school and get a constitutional law degree, although that is tickling me. I'm tempted to do that. But I believe in our founding principles. Do I believe this country is perfect and has lived up to them all? No, hell no, not even close. We've got a lot of work to do. There's been a lot that was not done. But what I'll always tell people this, including some of my friends that are Mexican American, Hispanic, Latino, that have issue with the United States and what it isn't, I don't disagree with them because it's easy to find fault. There's plenty of stuff to pick apart. But no one will deny this. And I'll argue this and win this argument with just about anybody. No country on the planet, at least up until now, that's for another issue, but at least up until now, at least until the recent years, very few countries, very few peoples on this planet, because of their founding document and the principles upon which the country was begun, very few can match the United States' ability to self-correct and improve. That is something that is measurable, identifiable, and provable. We get better. We can be better if we abide by, listen to, and follow founding principles. Okay? And that's not me being this or that. This is colorless. Okay? This is ethnicity-less. The principles upon which the document was founded, even if it was by a bunch of old white guys, does not matter. Does not matter. The words and the document and the founding principles are colorblind. And it's on us to make them colorblind in action. Okay? And we have to do a better job of that. And I'll say that. I'll call it out for us, for Mexicans in America. We need to do a better job. We need to go harder at using that document, using those founding principles for place and position in this country. And then we won't have to bitch and complain about what we're not getting or what we're not doing. It's all there. It's all there for you. Is it perfect? No, far from it. But it's a hell of a lot better than just about every other, country on the planet, with some exceptions. Okay, so this is the one topic I'm going to address today, then we'll be done. So I've given you a little bit of a primer. We've been on air for a little bit here. I'm going to give you the one topic of the day that is near and dear, to my heart. That's why I'm bringing up the point that, I'm a vet. I served. Both of my grandfathers served in World War II. And this is a safe estimate, but with both my Martinez side and my Ortiz side, we have, in essence, in the range of 100, since World War II, in the range of 100 servicemen in uniform that have served this country, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, etc. That's a lot. That is a lot. So I have it on both sides of my family. Just a duty, an obligation, and a responsibility to serve this country. We do. We serve and in general, Mexicans in America serve in really, really good numbers in proportion to their population in the United States. We serve in big numbers. We give. We give our trust and loyalty to this country. Okay? So this is the one that's on right now, and I'm going to finish with this in a few minutes here. But and I'm going to do this in the form of, like I said, in a Socratic form, right? So that you're not going to try to, I don't like it because you're saying this, and my political view is this. The hell with you on that. Go to hell with that. And I'm just being rough here because that's dumb. It's just not good. It doesn't get us to a good place. So do this. Start with this. Ask questions, right? That's it. Just ask the question. Ask the question. Even if you don't know the answer, keep asking questions. If you keep asking questions, it sparks dialogue. It sparks intellect. It makes you think if you just continue to ask questions. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Some of them I'll answer. Some of them I'll leave on the table. But they have to do with what's going on and what is current right now. I think you have to literally be living under a rock to not be aware of what's going on in the Caribbean with our missile strikes and our attacks in the Caribbean, all right? So before it becomes a uniformly political thing, let's ask the questions, okay? Let's ask the questions. Here's a question one. Are we at war with Venezuela? Okay, that's a question. Are these strikes illegal by international maritime law? Just a question. What are rules of engagement when it comes to our military and civilian or non-military opposition? Because that's what this is. That's not debatable, that's fact. What is UCMJ? I'll answer you that in a little bit. What is the Geneva Convention? What is the Geneva Convention, and what does it say, or what is its position when it comes to rules of engagement and land warfare or maritime warfare? Okay. Are double tap strikes legal? Who is responsible for giving the order or orders in the current situation? And I'm going to say this, and if you don't know, and this is the first time you're hearing, I doubt it, because if you're watching this show, you're probably somewhat knowledgeable on what I'm talking about already. Okay, the strike, and specifically the strike in the Caribbean on the boat where there were 11 drug traffickers. At least that's what we've been told. I'm not doubting it, but it hasn't been confirmed or can't be confirmed yet. So 11 on a boat, drug traffickers, and we struck them with precision missiles and took them out. Okay. The problem or the issue that is current now, and it's all over on any news station, anything in general, in the political world for sure. But the question is, after the first strike wiped out almost all of the drug traffickers on that boat, there were two that were not dead, and I've seen the footage of it. There were two that survived the initial strike, and they're climbing up out of the water trying to get on the boat after being hit. And then they're hit again. That's a double tap, 1-2, to make sure it's a kill. And so those two were, and again, there's still a lot to be hashed out here, and there's still a lot of information to be brought forward, but I have seen the videos already. They're available. You can see them yourself. Follow up. This is what we're going to address. And this is why I asked the questions prior. Ask yourself this question. Are we at war with Venezuela? Okay. Here are answers. Officially, we are not at war with Venezuela. Why? And for the record, this is all constitutional. And by the time I'm done here, if you keep coming back, you're going to realize I know what I'm talking about. And if I don't, I won't comment. Okay? You cannot be at war unless Congress says so. And Congress votes to go to war. A president or an executive in the executive branch cannot unilaterally declare war on any people or any country by Constitution. Okay, that's enumerated in the first clause. Solely the power of the Congress. So, unless I miss something, wink, wink, insert joke, Congress has not passed or voted to go to war with Venezuela. So it's a rhetorical question. The answer is no. Are we at war with Venezuela? The answer is no, because we have not declared war. And a president by himself or a secretary of defense by themselves cannot declare war unilaterally by themselves on their own through the executive branch. They cannot declare war on a people or a country without the consent or the vote of Congress. See how that works? Clear. So start with that. So wait a minute. So if we're not at war, but we're striking them, then it's not war. Then what is it? It's a police action. It's not war. That's different. Okay? So there are going to be a lot of problems with how this is termed and how this is addressed. But the minute you start asking questions, it leads to more questions. And if you keep asking questions and it's leading to more questions, then we've got a problem because there are no answers. That means somebody's playing games and playing loose with truth. Okay? Are these strikes legal by international maritime law? I don't think they are, because we're not at war with Venezuela. We're just whacking people out on the high seas. And so I'm asking you to do this. You don't have to like that. You might be okay with just, hey, let's go take out some drug traffickers. I was asking some people some questions, and they were giving me some questions in return. And they asked me this: why is it on a boat that is trafficking drugs, cocaine in particular, I think was the call on this particular boat? If they're moving drugs on a boat, why do you have 11 people on that boat? This is common sense. If you're trying to move a large amount of drugs, why do you want a large amount of people? The truth is, you only need 1 or 2 or 3 at most to operate that vehicle and move those drugs. Why do you have 11? In other words, something's fishy. Something doesn't track here. Something's not tracking. Why so many people on that boat? Why do you want that many bodies on a boat? You want to traffic a lot of drugs if you're a drug trafficker. Not to say that they're not doing it, by the way, okay? However, that's a question that you need to ask yourself. Like, okay, I'm beginning to question now more and more. I let some of it go for a while, but this has become common. This latest flare-up with the double tap shot on the guys that were not killed in the first strike. I'm beginning to wonder about these strikes that we have going on in the Caribbean. We're just shooting anybody. We're just shooting drug traffickers. And if they're not military personnel, then they're civilians. And if we want to eliminate drugs, why are we, okay, we're just going to go shoot some boats. Why are you taking out the peanuts, the peons, the people that are just moving them? And they're probably just civilians. They're not military. So we have our nation's military targeting civilians of other countries. That's a problem. Not going to address it all here, but I want you to leave that hanging because that's an issue. You may not think so, but it is. Not just for us, but globally. That's a problem. If we're seen to just be able to target civilians of any stripe maker model just because we can and because we want to, that's a problem. And it's not just a problem globally, but it's a problem for our military, by the way. It's a problem for our military because our military is not meant to do that. The United States Army, the United States Navy, etc., is not meant to just kill civilians. That is not what we're designed to do. That is not what our mission is. And we're being used that way. There will be repercussions within the chain of command, within the force itself. In this particular case, naval operations, Navy, Coast Guard. There will be some issues. Okay, let me give you one real quick. What is UCMJ? It's the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It is the binding law that governs and regulates uniformed military personnel in our services. Uniform Code of Military Justice. All right, and all of this arose specifically because, and not a coincidence, I think there's more to be had here, and it's going to come up. The Uniform Code of Military Justice specifies specifically that a uniformed person, officer or enlisted, whatever, in any service is obligated by their oath to the Constitution. And let me make sure I'm clear here. When you join the military, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, etc., you do not swear an oath to an individual, a politician, a president, anybody. You swear an oath to the Constitution. The Uniform Code of Military Justice is the governing law for military personnel in all of our branches. And it specifies, you are not to obey an illegal order. You are obligated, you are expected, you are duty bound to disobey an illegal order. And this is where the problem is going to rise. Because something's wrong here, and more is going to come out, and most of the commanding generals that I've seen comment on this, they're careful because they're smart men and they've been doing this a long time, but they're all seeing the same thing, that this is probably not, this is not legal. And the commander, and his name was Admiral Frank Bradley. I actually feel for this guy. He took that order and he executed it. And let me make sure I'm clear why it's an illegal order when it comes to the Navy or the shot at the drug traffickers. You're not supposed to obey an illegal order. What does that have to do with this? By Geneva Convention, another governing code after World War II, codes that the United States abides by in war and has abided by for decades. We have rules. You don't just kill whoever the hell you want. You don't get to do that. That's lawless. That's not the United States. We are professional. We are law-abiding. We are rule-based. You can argue with all you want, but for the most part, over the last 70-plus years, since World War II, we are. So, if the drug traffickers are struck and they're hit, if the two that survived are crawling onto a boat after the strike, they are now shipwrecked and they are no longer combatants. They no longer pose a threat to United States and United States military, and therefore they cannot be attacked. Let me make sure I'm really clear about that. They cannot be attacked. They become prisoners of war at that point. If they're just unilaterally smoked and killed, then that potentially is an illegal act of war. And whoever gave the order, whoever executed the order, is subject to not just UCMJ, but Geneva Convention law as well. Major problem, serious problem. I actually feel for the people that were in that room that are military personnel to be put in this position to where they could lose their career. They could be court-martialed. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see. But I'm going to make sure I'm 100% clear, especially for all you badasses out there. You think, oh, just kill them all. Once you hit them and you didn't finish all of them, you didn't kill them, the survivors are no longer combatant. We're not at war anyway, by the way. Okay, this isn't a war. But they are no longer combatant. They no longer pose a threat. Therefore, they become prisoners of war, if it's a war. See how that works? All kinds of conflicting problems here. But they no longer pose a threat. They can no longer harm. They're literally helpless climbing out of the water. And you kill them. That's an execution. Some of them, some commanding generals, some retired military personnel have said it and just stipulated that's murder. That's murder. They were murdered. And that's a problem because we did that, right? And don't get me wrong. I know you can say, oh, we've done things like that in the past. Yeah. Does it make it right? Because something happened prior that was not good, does that make it okay now? And that's your excuse and that's your defense? Come on. If that's your best, then you shouldn't bother trying. But let me make sure I'm clear. If they were struck and they survived and they're climbing onto a boat and they no longer, I don't think they presented a clear and present danger anyway, for the record. I doubt they could have hit our naval vessel and took us out. But they are no longer combatant. They become prisoners of war or they become casualties. And you cannot, by UCMJ and Geneva Convention, just unilaterally kill them, murder them, execute them. Somebody's going to pay a price, and somebody should pay a price, because that's not what we're supposed to be, United States. Okay? I'm going to leave it there, but I want you asking those questions as you see all the stuff that's going to come out and what's currently out right now. The footage is there for you to view. You can see the boat obliterated and then the two survivors that are trying to survive and then executed. Somebody needs to pay a price. I'm not going to say somebody needs to pay a price. Probably more than one. And I don't like saying it because I'm prior service military. I don't want our military personnel responsible for orders given to them that they should have disobeyed. And therein lies the rub. There it is. At some point, somebody in that room should have said, I cannot obey that order. And for the record, this isn't like new. This has happened before. You have someone give you an unlawful order. You are obligated, you are duty bound, you are oath bound to the United States military to disobey that order. And the minute you don't, the minute now you are culpable, liable for the corresponding action that saw more death. It's a problem. So again, let me finish here, but ask those questions. Ask those questions fairly and openly. And I know some of you are not going to like it because you can't hear anything negative about this administration or the people running this country. If you're that weak, if you just do backflips because they tell you to, then you're probably not watching my show anymore. Please don't. Don't waste your time. Don't bother, okay? Just don't. Are we at war with Venezuela? That's a question. Are the strikes illegal according to international maritime law, Geneva Convention law? What are rules of engagement when it comes to drug traffickers or people that are civilians trafficking drugs? Do we treat them as military? Just questions. What is UCMJ? I gave you that specific, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It is the binding governing law that regulates All military personnel, anybody that swears an oath to the Constitution to serve this country, they're bound by UCMJ. Before all else, by the way, before anybody else, before a commander, before a general, before a president, they're bound by UCMJ. This is bigger than any one person. And if you can't get that concept, it's probably because you're too far deep in the cult to understand that. Okay? Bigger than any one person. And last I checked, the way I was raised, no one is bigger than this country. No individual. Or shouldn't be anyway. Are double tap strikes legal? Kind of describe that a little bit. And ultimately, this is the last question. Who is responsible for giving the order? Who gave the order? You could even insert some old Jack Nicholson, right? Like, you're damn right I gave the code red, only this isn't funny. In that movie, A Few Good Men, someone died because a commander gave a wink-wink order, meaning he didn't order it directly, kind of, and then he did, but someone died. And the point is, this is life and death. This is serious business. This is not a joke. This is not funny. So ask yourself those questions as you see. Ask yourself as guiding principles for what you hear on whatever news outlet or manner of intake of information that you use. Maybe you listen to podcasts, maybe you listen to radio, maybe you watch TV. I don't know. But use these questions as your guiding principle to parse out and sift through the stuff that is clearly skewed one way for political benefit. Okay? Ask that question. Who is responsible for giving the order that executed those two survivors? I want to know. And I think we will ultimately get to the bottom of it. I think they're already beginning to try to snake their way out of it and try to blame someone so that others don't get involved. But I'll leave you with this last thought as we finish up this first SuperMex Nation back from a long layoff. I was raised to believe, again, by two World War II grandfathers and my dad before he passed, and my mom, and then trained, the United States Army, that if you are responsible, it is your obligation, it is your duty, it is your ethical and moral objective to stand up and say it was my fault and not cast blame on somebody else. But as I finish up tonight, I'm going to remind you, those of you watching, not very many people, or at least the percentage of people that have that kind of spine exist anymore in positions of power. Do you want to be like that? I'm not talking about the position of power. I'm just saying individually, day to day. You have kids, you have a wife, you have a family, you have moms, you have brothers, sisters, etc. In your daily life, are you that person that blames others when you screw up, when you make a mistake, when you cost somebody something serious, like a life? Are you the first one out the door trying to get away? Are you trying to blame someone else? If we were better about that as a country, we wouldn't be in half of the mess that we are in as a country. If people owned up to their obligations, responsibilities, and didn't shirk that duty and responsibility to others, hide like weasels so that they can cover themselves and get away with something while others take the blame for them. It's not the way I was raised. And for the record, I'm no saint, I'm not perfect. But very few people on this planet, if any, can actually walk up to you and say, yeah, that guy got me in trouble so he can get out of something. No one can say that about me. I don't do it. I'd rather take the damn bullet myself. I will take the fall. And in many cases, I have. and I can show that deliberately. But yeah, no one's accusing me of throwing them under the bus. I'll get under the bus with you first, before you. I'll take the bullet. So again, ask that question as we go forward. Ask that question as we view the coming days. And don't get me wrong, there'll probably be another news cycle bust where something else comes up and then the shiny object goes. But this is serious. This affects our nation's military. This affects our global standing and perception in the eyes of the world. We are not quite what we used to be, in terms of our resolve, our ethical code of conduct, our morality? What are we? But ask that question. Who gave the order? Who is responsible? And then watches all the weasels scurry and watches all the little roaches exit and see who gets the blame, because somebody's going to get blamed. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. So after tonight's show, it's going to go up. It's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on Facebook, on Twitch as well. I'm going to put out a schedule after tonight, after I sit with my producer, Dominican, and we are going to work out a schedule that is at least weekly, if not bi-weekly, as we go into the holidays, because I'm ready to go. I've waited long enough, and there's plenty to address. And again, it isn't just going to all be political. This is the topic of today, but there's plenty else that I want to address and get to in art, music, entertainment, other cultural forms, other things to address. There's plenty that isn't just political, right? But again, lastly, all with the common thread of where do we go and how do we get together and go to that place together in the same direction as Mexicans in America, or just as Americans in general. Because my last thought on that is, I've said this for many, many years. If Mexicans in America realize and manifest their full potential in America, then this country is stronger tomorrow. You can quote me on that. You can quote that. If Mexicans in America get together, work together, help each other, this country will be better tomorrow if Mexicans in America realize their full potential. And I think I'll leave it on that. I'm not good at this, but subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that's going to be the primary platform. I'll put the links out through the Facebook group, but also on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, like it, etc. Do all that hoorah stuff. We need more Mexican-American voices that can address these issues with clear and relevant thought, because there just isn't a lot. So we need more. So that's the start. Hit like, hit subscribe, do all that, and be on the lookout for when it'll probably be within a week, if not next week at this time, be sometime soon within that. And then we'll begin, like on a consistent basis, addressing serious issues. And again, with the common thread to where are we going? We don't have to agree on everything, but we need to understand some things and have some common ground. Okay, that's it for tonight. Thank you for being here. Again, like, subscribe, share, etc. And I'll see you as soon as we get the new schedule back up, again, within a week or so. And then we're back on. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I'll see you next week.